was a matter of principle, they would be consistent, but they're not. Shame on them, but shame on Biden too, and I'm not both siding it. He said he learned the lesson. He obviously forgot it. So let's talk about the state of play and listen to someone who's involved tell us why this is okay. Tennessee Congressman John Rose. Appreciate you taking the opportunity with as busy as everything is. You heard my analysis. Please feel free to tear it to shreds.
Well, thank you for having me on tonight, Chris. And I think what I would take issue with is first to begin by saying, you know, the last 8 major deals to get spending under control in this country have been have happened on the occasion of a debt ceiling increase. So this is not new to Washington. This is the way it's been done for 25, 30 years since I was a mere child, really. And so that's number one. Number two, I do take this seriously, and I think Republicans in the House take this serious. That's why we've been trying since January to get the president to sit down and talk about this and begin the process of working toward a solution. And that's why more than a month ago, you know, we passed the Limit, Save, Grow Act in the House that reasonably, responsibly, sensibly increases the debt ceiling, but does so looking to the future to limit future spending and start to get future spending under control. Not cutting it dramatically or drastically, but rather limiting its growth in the future. Of course, clawing back some of the big spending increases that happened late last year that were, in my mind, and I think in the minds of House Republicans, unreasonable. So we've put forward a proposal. That's the way Congress works. The House, we've turned in our homework. It's done. And if the other side doesn't like it, there's a process for this, and that is the Senate should have passed a bill. They haven't. They can't. And so that's why we find ourselves in this dilemma right now, is because Leader Schumer and Democrats, and really led by the President, Joe Biden, have refused to take this issue seriously.
Congressman, the only pass I'll give you is that you weren't there for the full complement of Trump years. You got in, I think, in like 2019 or something like that. But this idea that this is how Congress works is because Congress is broken. And you guys are cheating. That's what you're doing. If you want to argue about the budget, you should do so during the budget reconciliation process, not when you have to authorize a raise in the debt ceiling to pay for spending that was already passed. All you're doing by that is threatening everybody's collective well-being. And you can't say no or not, because you have in the past. We've learned this lesson. And there is no small irony, Congressman. And again, I won't beat you over the head with it because you weren't there for all of it. But you were there in 2019. And Trump passed a big fat budget that you guys were just fine with on the heels of a tax cut that didn't pay for itself. And you didn't mess with the debt ceiling at all, because the spending was on your watch and you could say at home that you took care of people. And that's ugly politics. That's my problem.
Well, I voted against that debt ceiling increase, and also voted against the debt ceiling increase, the largest in history, in 2021, which, by the way, then took less than 400 days, just over a year, to go through the largest single debt ceiling increase in history. But what I would point out to you, Chris, again, I would restate, the last 8 major deals since the 1980s to deal with spending have been occasioned by the need to increase the debt ceiling. So this is when we're able to get this done. And so we've made a proposal. If the other side doesn't like it, there's a process for that. That is, the Senate should pass a bill to their liking.
But they don't have the numbers.
Send it back to us, and then we can have a conversation and a debate or a discussion or a negotiation about that. And the president has just steadfastly refused to do so, putting the nation at risk of a default. And that's not a reasonable thing. One other thing I would point out, though, Chris,
Wait, hold on a second. Hold on a second, Congressman. Congressman, hold on one second. Hold on one second. You are putting the nation at risk because you are the one forcing this to be a priority during the debt ceiling process. I know Congress does it. I promise you on my kids. If and when the Democrats do this on my watch, I will have a smiling face that has a D instead of an R next to it, and I will be giving them the same treatment. I promise you. What I'm saying is I know that it always happens, but it's always wrong, and we know that.
I disagree. I disagree, Chris. You know, if every Tennessean listening to this show tonight when they come home, if their credit card has been maxed out, the first thing they're going to do is not to try to open another account or increase their credit limit. They're going to take a serious look at their spending. And that's what we're doing. So I and other Republicans,
Congressman, different metaphor. Congressman, let me match analogies, and I'll give you the last word.
Let me finish.
Right,
we need to honor our debt. Absolutely. And I don't think anyone on the Republican side disagrees about that. But we cannot continue to spend at the rate we are and expect this country to thrive. And so this is the occasion when that conversation has happened historically. It may not be the ideal time, but it is the time when it has happened historically. And that's all we're saying. And again, I think we're ready to negotiate, have been for 100 days, have passed something a month ago, and unfortunately, Republicans have just heard silence chirping back from the other side. The president refused to come to the negotiating table. The Senate refused to do its work. We've turned in our homework. They're welcome to copy our homework if they want to, and they can get full credit for that. But otherwise, they need to do their job.
Listen, the analogy you gave is bettered by this one. If you get a credit card bill, you do not call up the credit card company and say, I'm not going to pay you right now because I really want to negotiate my rate going forward. Because you know what happens? Your credit rating is going to tank, and nobody's going to lend you money, not even in this crazy credit crazy country.
We've reasonably, responsibly, sensibly proposed to increase that credit limit to allow our bills that have been paid that are going to come due to be paid.
Then
so
why?
We're not
then why did Fitch?
Paying those bills, but we can't continue to spend at the rate we are and expect us to be able to pay those bills in the future. And that's what every Tennessean do.
All right, but listen. But Tennesseans don't run their household budgets the way you're running this one, okay? You guys assume that you're going to have to borrow money to pay because you can't balance the budget. So the rest of us don't get to do that at home. We go broke and we lose our homes. What I'm saying is this. You don't have to do it this way. You know that because Fitch just said there's a negative watch on our credit limit. We know on our debt rating. That's what happened in 2011, and it cost us over $1 billion just so that you could get a deal. And that's the point that I want you to remember here. Tennesseans want you to be responsible, but not with this kind of brinksmanship. We got to be able to do it better than this, Congressman, no? And remember, you didn't do it during Trump, and he spent more money, except for a handful of budgets, than we have ever seen. And you guys were fine with it. And that's what exposes the game.
Well, but remember that those tax cuts that were made in 2017 before I came to Congress in early 2019, they led to the highest level of revenue for the federal government in 2022 that we've ever seen, a 43% increase in just 2 years. And so those tax cuts actually stimulated the economy and led to record revenues. And yet we still managed to spend more than that. And that is what has led us where we are. That's what's led to this confrontation the last 8 times, is that we have to take advantage of the opportunity when we can to confront runaway spending in this country.
The analysis of those tax cuts, the majority, at least, of them is that they did not pay for themselves, and you wound up taking care of corporations who find all kinds of creative ways to not pay anywhere near what they should be paying in taxes. But look, my point here is I want you to be able to make your case, not just to Tennesseans, but to the whole country, and you're always welcome to do so. I appreciate you, and I wish you good luck with the job.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thanks for having me on tonight.
All right, Congressman John Rosen, please enjoy the weekend. Remember the fallen this Memorial Day. Be well.
Good night.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, my next guest at one point had the most downloaded podcast in the world. I had him on my podcast, he had me on his podcast, and then his fans savaged me.